Is it about protecting Patrick Mahomes or giving him more targets? That's the question on this Mock Draft Monday. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom, friends, neighbors around the world. Nice to see you. It's a new Monday. It's a new week, and we have a new mock for you. We are going to give you 7 rounds of another scenario, especially in light of what's happened recently, for what the Chiefs could choose to do. This is Chris Clark, the owner of Chiefs Corner. He's going to give you all the quarterback stats, all the capology that we need to know this time of year, as well as insights only he can bring you. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where I build the athletic matrix along with me and my staff, where we can bring all of you into the same kind of conversation we have about athleticism, as well as our draft guide that puts production, film grades, and athleticism all together. You can check it out at rogueapc.com and use our code LOC to get a nice discount. Then check out NFL 33, where you can see our content surrounding the draft and team building, and RGR Football, where we break down even more of the Chiefs. Get it all on all of our cycles and start here with Locked On Chiefs. That's your team every single day here on YouTube, where you can begin by liking, subbing, and hitting the bell, and going out to Spotify and YouTube. Beyond, get over to Apple. Get all the audio that you want, because we're free and available everywhere all the time, every single day, and sometimes even more so, like our bonus show that we gave you yesterday based on the news surrounding Rashee Rice that's going to play into this week as well. But thank you for being with us. We very much appreciate you. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. They are our partners, and we're rolling with them right now. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets based on a $5 win. Right now, super simple, $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go get started there today. We are going to get started. And if you missed the news, Rashee Rice has been involved in a traffic thing in Dallas, putting a lot of details right now as we understand them, still not very clear. So putting his season, maybe a bit of a question mark there. Chiefs have not been in this position for quite a long time, since there was an off-the-field thing going on with Tyreek Hill that led to a selection. So I think what we have to do, Chris, is set up the scenario. What if Rashee Rice isn't available for the Chiefs' run at a three-peat? What do they do?
There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to get into when you start talking about Rashee Rice not being available. As of right now, as of this recording, we still think that probably he will be available at some point during the season. The question is how much. But we do have to take into account that it's possible he'll be missing some games, and how's that going to change what the Chiefs are going to want to do on offense?
That's the big question mark. And I have a theory, and this is all, folks, don't worry, we're going to get to our mock draft here shortly. This is setting up the scenario, though, because like the last time this happened, it is a significant shift. If you were to be without Rashee Rice for, say, half the season, maybe more, that would be a drastic difference in what you're planning to go into with your number one wide receiver. And yes, he's the Chiefs' number one wide receiver. Not pass catcher, but wide out. That's okay. To me, that says two things. One, immediately I am re-signing Mecole Hardman. And two, I am making the shift from where I have been this whole process, where I thought offensive tackle, protecting Mahomes' blind side with the left tackle in particular was job number one, was top priority.
Freaky Friday draft. A lot of people liked it.
Absolutely. You had a great scenario to get Joe Alt. If you guys missed the show, we're doing the craziness on Fridays just because we want to have a little bit of fun. Go check that out. We had a couple of scenarios. Today, we're trying to get work done. This is a little bit more straightforward and realistic, as much as we can do when we're basing this on mock draft machines that we don't write the algorithms for, folks. Everything you're about to see here, I just want to put a little disclaimer, is not programmed by us. We are using the tool to the best of its efficiency. That's all we can do. So if you don't like it or you think it's unrealistic, go yell at PFF because they set up the rules. That's all I'm going to say. But
and that's a huge deal.
It is. It definitely is. It's a world that they create. We're just working in it. But in that, I would go bring back Mecole right now with Hollywood on board, with KT still here. And I know everyone wants to say he might as well be out of here, whatever. If he can learn to catch the ball again, there's a significant scenario that I'm about to lay out. I am making the change to wide receiver as the top priority for this team. And I am going hunting for a guy that can make this team almost undefendable deep. And that guy's name will come up here in a little bit, because I'm looking for a trio of wide receivers that can press through cover 3, cover 6 cloud, and put all kinds of defensive backfields into total confusion by pressing deep with speed and allowing the other assets the Chiefs already have, including Sky Moore, including KT, and obviously Travis Kelce, to reap the benefits. That's where I'm at right now. What say you?
Let's get into the scenario. Let's get into who you take, because there's a lot to unpack when it comes to that.
There certainly is.
There we go.
Okay.
So we are sitting at 22. Kansas City has traded up with the third rounder that they got in the Xavier Sneed trade next year. That's the only ammo they used to do this trade. And now they're sitting at 22 on the clock.
Okay, so we were trading with old friend Philly, Howie Roseman, trying to get out of that pick. We went from 32 to 22, and we gave up the additional third rounder that Tennessee gave us for L'Jarius Sneed.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's plausible. It's a little on the easy side, in my opinion, but that's plausible, given what values are represented, not just in this tool, but what we've seen in prior. We're going up 10, and we're going up to the bottom still. 22 is the median, the 66th percentile of this draft, right? Okay, fair enough. Does that afford me the opportunity to get a wide receiver that I might want? Xavier Legette is what's on the screen. Give me the wideout list, and let's take a look.
Okay.
Donnie Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, who I do like quite a bit, Jermaine Burton, I looked at him a couple weeks ago, Keon Coleman, Jalen Polk, Legette, McMillan. Do love what McMillan does. And there's my guy. A little bit surprised. And I know we've talked about Xavier Worthy, not the full route tree. Is he undersized? Yes. He's not Tyreek Hill. He does not have the lateral agility to be Tyreek Hill. I'm not trying to make him be. In my scenario, the Chiefs have a grade on him that says he's worth trading up for or selecting if they trade up. Again, we did the scenario without seeing it fall, right? This was before the draft kicked off.
Yep.
Okay. Because I would not advocate I would not advocate going to 22 specifically for him, but if they had already moved up. My concept is okay.
I was just going to say, I think that you look at this and you say, okay, well, how far can we go up with just trading away maybe something that we weren't expecting to have, or that is kind of looked at as an extra right now?
I like it. I like it a lot. And this is the scenario that I'm chasing. If I can't have Rashee Rice for any significant amount of time, I want to stress defenses out by throwing as much speed at them as I can. And if you put Hollywood, McCole Hardman, and Xavier Worthy on a trip set on one side of the field and run your four deeps that you want to run, that Andy runs all the time, that incorporates a spread and puts the safeties into conflict, carries the corners as far as you can because all those guys can run, that opens up the entire field for Travis Kelce, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney, and anyone else that they feel can go catch passes reliably. I love that concept, and it gives Patrick home run opportunities. That's what I would like to do if Rashee Rice cannot be available for me.
And I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that you look at what Kansas City would be able to do with that scenario, and even when you get to a point where you get Rice back, what are you able to do when you get him on the field? And, you look at what Travis Kelce is going to be able to do with those three guys on the field with him at the same time. That's a ton of speed. That's just going to open up everything else. And I think that'd be a lot of fun to do. My quick thing that I will say is that it's sitting here at 22, you still have Tyler Guyton out there, Jordan Morgan, who's usually been there at 32 regardless. And the thing that I start to look at is who's available when you start looking at tackles, not necessarily for this pick at 22, but who could possibly be available when they're going to be picking again at 64, or that they might have to be willing to trade up to go try to get in the tackle market at 64.
Yeah, Guyton is the guy that is the last, that is a first round grade on my board currently. And so that would also be tempting. A number of tackles have already gone. In this scenario, though, again, I have flipped the need because of the lack of Rashee Rice. So at this point, it would still be come back and get a second round tackle. And I think we know some of those names, but that would be my argument.
No, and I get it. And if I'm Kansas City and if I'm sitting in this position, I actually would be considering taking Xavier Worthy at 22 and then trying to trade back up into the second round to try to go get a tackle that you really like versus sitting there at 64 and seeing who falls.
Okay, we can explore that. I'm down with that. So are we good on Worthy in the first round?
Yeah, and we will take Worthy when we get back from our break, because I do want to talk about looking at the second round, how we're possibly going to fit that in, and what it's going to look like when we get back talking about our friends over at FanDuel.
Hey, it's April, and the sports calendar is absolutely loaded. FanDuel's making even more easy and more exciting to get in the action right now. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets by just winning a $5 bet. March Madness, anything that's going, you might look at UFL. You can get in the action anywhere that you are looking for and get $200 back into your account by betting any or all of those. Don't forget the NHL. And I love watching and playing fantasy hockey, so check that out as well. And check out our fantasy guys over today on Fantasy and NHL Show. You can do this all at FanDuel.com/lockedon and get your first big win. That's going to set you up for the rest. Go check it out at FanDuel.com/lockedon at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so we're gonna take Worthy.
Don't forget, there's 24/7 coverage on Locked On Sports today. You want to check that out? That's here on YouTube or on Amazon Fire. Didn't mean to interrupt you. What are we doing?
No, we are going to take Worthy, but I want to go and I want to try to make a trade. So let's look at possibly doing a trade. Where do you think that they would need to go up to get a tackle? And the reason I'm doing this now, we are going to take Worthy. The reason I would do this now is because I don't want to have to try to pause it and try to figure out later. So where do you want to go? Let's try to make that trade now.
If you want to get, say, Kingsley Sumataya, you probably got to get to 50.
Okay, so the Bengals pick at 49, the Steelers pick at 51, the Rams pick at 52, the Giants pick at 47.
Giants or Rams are your best bets, in my opinion. I would stay with an NFC scenario.
Well, I agree. So 47 or 52?
I'd say 52 and see what happens.
Okay. So Rams, and we're going to try to get 52. And we're going to offer what? 64. What do you think we got to give up to get to 52?
At least 131 is going to be my guess. Yeah, and that won't get it done either. You got to give up 2 picks to get there. I don't find that worth it myself. I would pick Worthy and come back at 64 with our standard pick.
So you don't think that there's, if you could get Sumatai, you don't think he's a big enough upgrade over what you would get at 64?
Not in my opinion.
Okay. Well, we will stick with our draft plans then, and we will go on to take Xavier Worthy. Good grief, I forget that he's so far down. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you saw this, but Chris Jones and
believe me, I am well aware. If the tackles are gone, I know where I'm going next.
And Charles and Minihue were really talking about DeAndre's.
I think Charles and Chris have been watching my mocks because I've been getting that done fairly often.
Okay, so we took Worthy at 22.
Okay.
And now we're waiting, and we will be picking again at 64.
Not the Longhorn that you were looking for.
So wide receiver, I still would think would be a potential possibility.
Got to have an eye on it.
Let's look at interior. So Jalen McMillan, Devontae Walker. Sumatai is long gone. He was picked at 46. So even if we would have traded to 47, we wouldn't have got him.
We would not have gotten him. All right. Run down the rest of the tackles for me that have gone.
Okay, so
after Kingsley,
we are looking at, that's it.
Okay, so the guy with the feet that I like should still be available. Let's go look specifically at tackle, and we'll go from there.
I'm clicking on the wrong things.
Now, folks, this is called drafting for need, and I understand that Chiefs don't necessarily always do this, but best player available at a position of need, I think is legitimate. We're going to take a look at each position. Patrick Paul is the player that I'm thinking of that I do have a second round-ish grade. He's right on the edge there for me. And I do think he has the athletic upside to be viable in the Chiefs offense, as much so as Sumatai is, because there are feet issues. I think that Sumatai is more versatile, whereas I think Paul might be more prototypical to hit that floor up in the Andy Reid, Andy Heck system. I know a lot of you are going to ask, tell me about Kieran. Folks, I have not been able to see a single speck of Yale film yet. I am searching. I will keep searching. I guarantee you. But at this time, I have not been able to do any film work on him.
Well, and that's a problem. I mean, obviously the Chiefs are going to have that. They're going to be able to have a pretty good idea. But it's that, when they have them sitting here at 57, and you're talking about Yale, which is not known for its football players, definitely something to watch. But it does say that going to Yale, he's obviously a very smart kid, and that does go a long way when you start talking about offensive line play and calls and checks and all of that fun stuff as well. So don't overlook the ability to have that brain power and intelligence. It could make a big difference.
Agreed. Obviously, we saw that T'Vondre Sweat is still on there. He would be a viable possibility at this point as well for me. Do me a quick favor and see what we have in terms of trade back offers.
Okay.
Commanders at 67. Move back 3 places. What can I get for that? Can I get a 100 to move back 3 spots?
No.
Okay. If that were true, we'd be on our way. But let's see what else that we could get. Would they give us 139 instead of 100? That we could get done. For moving back 3 spots, is that worth it to you? That's 8 spots behind a selection that we already have.
Yeah, and I mean, you're sitting there figuring that you're going to have the ability to go get. I mean, there's a couple of guys you already still lock in your board, so I would say that would be a viable move.
Yeah, I'd say let's pull the trigger on that, knowing that we have a wide receiver that we like, we have a D interior that we like, and we have an offensive tackle that we like. Let's see if they all went.
Kieran
they did not.
Went. Yep.
Kieran did.
McMillan went.
So now it comes down to our offensive tackle or our defensive tackle. What's your flavor? I know what Chris Jones would do. He would be take T'Vondre Sweat, 2 Longhorns.
Chris Jones would be sprinting to the podium.
Absolutely. For me, it comes down to Sweat versus Paul.
Yeah. I don't see Paul on here.
He's a little bit lower.
Is he? Okay, 90. Honestly, to me, where do you have Sweat compared to Paul? Do you think Sweat is better? Because to me, what I would rather do in this scenario is I would take Sweat here and see if you can use that pick that you just got at 139 to trade back up from 95.
I think that's a great scenario. I do have Sweat higher on my board, but that is more of a floor than a ceiling. And okay. Paul could be somebody who can compete with Monty Morris to be the next left tackle, and that positional value is drastic.
Okay, so let's try. What do you think? You think I'd say 83? 83 for 95. Wait.
Plus 139.
Yeah.
If you change that to 131 instead of 139, give him 8 spots, you'll get it.
Well, I want to try it at 139 first. Okay, not accepted. So still not accepted. So how about we throw in the 7th? That was.
Okay, so let's get Sweat on the roster, folks. And we're going to come back and we're going to wrap up the rest of this draft. It'll be a speed round, but we will get there.
Okay, drafting to T'Vondre Sweat.
All Longhorns all the time. When we get back, the rest of the Chiefs scenarios right here, picking at 83 on the Locked On Podcast Network. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. The best way to squeeze extra things in, whether it's special or if you have a ton of film work to do in a given couple of months, the best way to squeeze that is to figure out what's most important and get yourself a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters most to you. and get more done of it. That's why if you're thinking of starting therapy right now, you should go give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed specifically for you to be convenient, flexible, and suit your schedule. Very difficult this time of year for me, and I understand why that challenges a lot of folks. So if that sounds good to you, all you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, make sure that you get matched with a licensed therapist, and get started. You can then change therapists whenever you like for no additional charge to make sure that that fit is there. So learn to make time for what makes you happy and makes you more profitable, makes you more productive with BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/lockedon is where you can get 10% off your first month right now. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Okay. Trade scenarios have bogged us down a little bit. We're back on the clock at 83. And what are you looking for here? Max Melton makes my mouth water a little bit. I'm just saying. Folks, Max Melton is CB1 in the athletic matrix and gives you the athleticism that L'Jarius Sneed left behind plus a little bit.
Yeah, but look who's still sitting there.
Yeah, and there's our offensive tackle to come in and compete. And the nice thing about Paul is the footwork, like I said, the lower body work. He has the athleticism and the lower body to compete, if not to beat out Wanya Morris, to be the swing tackle of the future. And so I do like him as a selection. You just sold me, Max. Good luck elsewhere.
Yeah, I like the thought of bringing in a CB that you have so highly rated in your matrix, but I have to go offensive tackle. And considering what we've already done, really, this only cost the Chiefs a 7th-round pick.
Yes.
So to me, obviously they traded away next year's 3rd that they got in the L'Jarius Sneed trade to move up in the 1st, but it's a 7th-round pick to move up 12 spots after moving back in round 2. To me, this is a no-brainer, and you go get the tackle. And I think if he can build in to be the tackle of the future, you are set to go.
Yeah, let's get him added. We're going to move on to day 3, folks. Make sure that you like, sub, hit the bell here. And so actually, we're going to wrap it there at 3 rounds because that's what this scenario calls for. We could go into the minutia of the rest of the draft picks, and there's going to be positional need that you have to pick up. There's a running back need that I think you have to add to this roster. But in all honesty, to get this done, to have moved around at the top half, and the top 100, I'll say it every year, and I'll say it until the cows come home, the top 100 is where you get players that have the most impact. Yes, you will have an occasional Trey Smith in the 5th. You'll have Isaiah Pacheco's in the 7th from time to time. But the impact players that you feel you have to go get answers for questions with, I think right here we answered what is probably the top 3. The next need I would say the Chiefs have is a corner to rebolster the bottom half, not to necessarily come in and become a starter, but to be a developmental player that can push Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, and eventually one of those 3 become the outside partner to Trent McDuffie. That would probably be what I want to stress next.
Yeah, and I do want to stress this. I understand that this is looking at it and it's saying it's an F for the Chiefs in this draft. The one thing I will say is that we went into this with a very specific purpose, and it was to try to get a guy that can really change what the Chiefs are going to be able to do on offense. And you laid out your scenario. It's going to be Hollywood Brown and McCole Hardman, and bring a guy in like Xavier Worthy who's going to be able to stretch the field, and having all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time with the Travis Kelce, and being able to do things that this offense hasn't been able to do, challenging all across the field with multiple different wide receivers. So regardless of really how the simulator looks at our grade, they're basically looking at it based on where they have the player ranked versus where we drafted them.
Absolutely.
I would say that I think Worthy is probably going to go much higher than 68. Whether or not he makes it into the 1st round is a whole nother question and a whole other bag of worms, but we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks. I do think, though, looking at this scenario, here's the other side of this. If Worthy comes in and the Chiefs get to a 3-peat because they have all that speed and they're able to do something different on offense, nobody's going to care that they gave away a 3rd-round pick to go get him. How many people blasted the Patrick Mahomes trade the day it happened, or the day after it happened, or even a couple of weeks after it happened? And please understand, I'm not trying to compare Worthy to Mahomes. What I'm simply saying is, looking at the grades, it's very hard to know until you see how they're placed in the roster, how they're used by the system, how they're able to move through. And the Chiefs are only going to make this move for Worthy if he fits, one, exactly what they want to do, and two, they feel like he has the intelligence to be able to step into the system and be productive year one, week one, not something like what we saw with Rashee Rice, where he was kind of slow to start. And that is a bigger deal in this scenario because you're going after the guy trying to help replace what you're going to be losing in Rice.
Yeah, agreed. And in a way that allows the offense to grow outside of Rice's presence, but then also with him back in the team confinements eventually. That is, I think, future-proofing yourself. And yes, this is a targeted thing. A lot of folks don't want to see the Chiefs do this, where you go up for a player again. And in many, many scenarios, I have Worthy as a 30s player, where he would potentially be available at 32. And a lot of the draft analysts that I trust are very similar. So it isn't necessarily needed, but in this scenario, we didn't want to take the choice. I think Brett Veach might feel the pressure to go take care of business and not leave anything to chance. Or it could even be a draft day scenario where, they get to 22 like we did here. And we were very more cognizant this time, folks, of trading with NFC teams that might actually trade with the Chiefs. But maybe it's at 25 and they're like, okay, now we can go up. Well, now we're willing to spend a little bit. I do think that is something we've seen them do with the Trent McDuffie trade and acquisition. I think that was important. And so this is, again, trying to address this very specific scenario that just came to light yesterday. Maybe it gets blown out of proportion and maybe there's nothing that comes from this. Maybe this is hope. Blip on our radar for 1 week. But we will be back with you next Monday for a whole different scenario of some sign or sort.
Yeah, and Friday we're going to have another Freaky Friday show, and who knows what we're going to be dealing with on Friday. But I will say this. When you look at this trade, I will tell you, I fully have faith that Veach already has an idea of what it's going to take to move up into different areas of the first round. Absolutely. So I don't expect them to make a trade before the draft, but it's a question of who's available when they know what it's going to take to move up. Because to me, that's the type of scenario that the Chiefs are always going to be in, picking at the end of the first round. They're going to look at it and say, okay, is this guy going to be available? Okay, what's it going to cost us to move up to go do it? And then if they're available at a couple picks beforehand, then you start going and calling that team. Okay, can we actually do this trade? That's how these things work. It's not something that usually happens on draft night, only on draft night anyway. They all are making calls to try to figure out how do we trade up to a certain point, and that's exactly what I think that this is the way this is going to play out. And I think that's probably what they did for the McDuffie trade as well. Is okay, they didn't have McDuffie slated there that he was going to be available, but if there's a guy there that we really like, what would it cost us to trade up to that pick to go get him?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I generally agree with you. I will say that there are a couple of things. You could see the Cardinals trade out of some spots. You could see the Vikings trade around. So that might adjust it to the point where maybe the Chiefs feel like they do need to do something pre-draft. I agree with you 95%. Most likely a trade for the Kansas City Chiefs will happen while someone's on the clock in the NFL draft.
Yep. That's exactly what I expect. A lot to be talking about this week. We will have you covered.
Absolutely. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell here on YouTube. Join us on Spotify and Apple as well. And let us know what you think of this particular scenario. I know it's fresh news about Rashee Rice. This could be considered an over compensation, but if you think so, put it in the comments down below. Let us know what you think. We appreciate you guys spending your time with us today. Enjoy this week. We're going to have more on draft prospects coming tomorrow. Matt Derrick on Wednesday. We'll get back with what the process looks, not just from Rashee Rice, but everything else. And then we will have another Freaky Friday for you, where we come up with some of our most favorite scenarios that might not be the most realistic, but should be a lot of fun. And then we'll be back with you for another Mock Draft Monday. Enjoy this week. I know it's only Monday, but it's going to be a good one. We'll talk